Welcome to Fun with Annuities, where every single week I welcome a celebrity guest expert that can help you maximize Chapter 2 of your life. Listen, learn, laugh, and love every minute of the most unique financial podcast on the planet. Let's get to it. Welcome to Fun with Annuities. I'm your host, Stan, the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. Yes, I am licensed in all 50 states and represent pretty much every carrier out there. Today's guest was a referral from a long-term guest, Terry Savage, that has been on our show many, many times. And people love it when she's on. But she said, Stan, you got to get Larry on. You got to get Larry on. So I'm chasing him down. He's a very busy guy. But let me give you some background and pedigree. And then I'm going to start throwing the ball to him and letting him score. His name is Lawrence Kotlikoff. Let's call him Larry. He's a renowned economics professor at Boston University. He's a New York Times best-selling author. The book that he wrote is called Money Magic, which is an economist's secret to more money, less risk, and a better life. Sounds good to me. He also has a podcast called Economics Matter on all major podcast platforms, just like Fun with Annuities. He has a newsletter that you can sign up for. And all of the things I'm getting ready to give you, he's going to have that permanent page on our site where you can go to those links and go straight to his newsletter and straight to his podcast and straight to buy his book and all that stuff. He's also, in his spare time, for gosh sakes, president of Maxifi.com, which, let me put it in layman's term to you, that is the only personal financial and retirement software that, in my opinion, is powerful and both accurate enough to calculate your highest sustainable living standards starting today, but with a plan to not only maintain it, but raise it for life. Sound good? You better believe it. And I'm going to have that link on as well. He also founded MaximizeMySocialSecurity.com, which is what Terry Savage was talking about, which is also a state-of-the-art software that helps you choose the right Social Security benefits at the right time and literally covers all cases, benefits, and rules. He has a couple more things that he's done, esplanner.com, etc. But, you know, obviously, Larry is a busy, busy guy. Larry, thank you so much for joining us on Fun with Annuities.
Stan, my pleasure. Did need to correct one thing, which is the book that is the New York Times bestseller is called Get What's Yours, The Secrets to Maxing Out Your Social Security. It's joint with Paul Solomon, who's a PBS NewsHour economics correspondent, and Phil Miller. And anyway, that's the Get What's Yours. It's about Social Security, but the new book hasn't made the bestseller list, but after this,
all right,
it will.
So I gave him the new book, but there's another book as well, and we'll put that on there. And you know, my assistants that do all this background research and the pre-meeting show, I'll have to get on them a little bit. But you're a busy guy. I kind of want to start at the Social Security. I know that's not. I really like what you're doing on the Maxifi. I love that. But let's talk about Social Security, the site that you have, because a lot of my viewers are either thinking about that, and they've heard me say so many times that you can't hate all annuities because you already own one. It's called Social Security, which is the best inflation annuity on the planet. But give us the kind of the impetus and why you started MaximizeMySocialSecurity.com.
So we actually started the other tool, which was called ES Planner, Economic Security Planner. Our company is called Economic Security Planning, Inc. So we turned that into a online program from a downloading program, and that's called Maxifi.com, Maxifi Planner. Mm-hmm. And then we grabbed the Social Security code from that tool and put it into a separate standalone program called MaximizeMySocialSecurity.com. And the reason we developed that tool, and the reason I wrote this book, At What's Yours, with my co-authors, is that Social Security has 13 benefits, so that seems like a small number. They have 1,278, I believe, rules about those 13 benefits in their handbook, and then there's hundreds of thousands of rules about the 2,720. I know it's actually 2,728 rules. That's it. 2,728 rules about the 13, but then hundreds of thousands of rules about the 2,728 rules. So the thing is like beyond complex. And how does a book about Social Security become a bestseller when it's all about the rules? Well, Paul's very funny, Phil's pretty funny, I'm pretty nerdy, somehow work together. but it's really that people don't know about this very fundamental thing that's the bedrock of their retirement. And it's absolutely an annuity that's inflation indexed. And you have the ability, it's doesn't seem like an investment vehicle, but you have the ability to make it bigger or smaller by making decisions. So for example, if you take your retirement benefit at 70, it's 76% higher than if you take it at 62. And when you give up 8 years of benefits, you're paying for a higher stream. So you're in effect buying an annuity from Social Security.
Correct.
8 years of the premium of lost benefits or premium. And there's an enormous, that's a fantastic deal. You can't buy a real annuity on the market right now that's inflation indexed.
No.
So I just did a study with the Atlanta Fed and another co-author that shows that the typical American household is leaving $182,000 on the table by not optimizing their Social Security decisions. So for, we have the software for $39, you can get it right.
Right.
And compare what you think you want to do versus what the software would say. I have a friend just lives right around the neighbor. Okay. Because the Wall Street Journal is doing an article, they wanted to find somebody who'd actually taken their benefits too early or early to talk to them. And so I was talking to him yesterday, see if he would be interviewed by them. He agreed. Arthur's his name. Great guy, smart guy, computer software engineer. He tells me, well, he took his benefit at 65 and he figured that it would be not much different than if he waited. I said, well, Arthur, it would have been 40% higher had you waited. He said, don't tell me that. I said, yeah, it would have been 40% higher if adjusted for inflation. And so he made a mistake. Had he known that, he would have done the right thing. So this was the impetus to try and help people, not just with their lifetime planning, but with this very, very critical thing where so many people are screwing it up. I mean, you have 90% of the people should be waiting beyond 60, beyond when they retire to collect. Only about 10% are. So
why is that? Is it just poor education, educating people on the right choices? Why do you believe that's the case?
I think people are making two big mistakes here, and partly it's they're helped in these mistakes by the Social Security Administration itself. Because if you go to an office and you say, "I want to wait," I'm signing up for Medicare, for example. I had another co-author who went there. He said, "I just want to sign up for Medicare. I'm going to wait till 70 to collect my Social Security." The lady started screaming at the top of her lungs, "You have to take your benefit now. You have to take your benefit now, because if you don't and you die tomorrow, you will lose your money. You'll lose out. You'll never get anything on all those contributions." And the fact of the matter is, if you die tomorrow, you're going to be in heaven. You're not going to need money. You're not going to be kicking yourself. The real danger here is that you live to 100 and you're starving eating cat food. So the real risk is, living a long time. It's not dying early and kicking yourself. And if you die early, your spouse will collect your widow's benefit or whatever. So there's that screw up and enforced by Social Security. And then there's also the fact that people think they're going to die on time at their life expectancy. So if you go to ssa.gov, Social Security's website, you're going to find this life expectancy calculator. This is like going to, suppose you went to a traveler's, some insurance company that's selling homeowners insurance, and they had a calculator showing you the average loss from a fire. You would not buy any fire insurance. You'd say, "Hey, this premium exceeds the average loss. No way am I going to," but everybody does buy fire insurance for the catastrophic risk.
Sure.
Annuities are in Social Security's case, for most people, waiting till 70 is going to give you catastrophic coverage because you're going to get this highest possible benefit right through age 100. So it's dealing with okay. So then the third reason really here, it's not just the misdirection from Social Security on, but you need to take it not lose it. You need to think about dying on time, which is ridiculous. Nobody's going to die on time.
Well, you can do it. It's just not a good strategy.
Yeah. But then the third thing I think is that people don't want to jinx themselves. I think there's some
Yeah.
superstition here that they worry if they really think seriously about living to 100, that they will actually die tomorrow. And they're superstitious, and consequently they're all making the wrong decision. So you're leaving 182. That's the median. We got people leaving. We found in this study of about 6,000 American households. It's a survey data from the Federal Reserve called the Survey of Consumer Finances, ran 6,000 people through our Maxifi.com tool.
Mm-hmm.
Then 182 that they're leaving the median. That's to say, half the people are leaving more than 182,000 on the table. We found one couple is lost close to $1 million, the high earners, obviously, by not take. I mean, this is such a good deal. It's like finding dollar bills in huge stacks right on your front stoop and not picking them up. That's what's going on here.
So for $39, someone can go on maximizemysocialsecurity.com and punch in, play around, and find real answers based upon their customized situation, right?
And then the other thing that Terry and I've been writing about what I call Social Security horror stories. That's what I would write in Forbes because I write for them.
Sure.
That would be the title, Social Security horror story this month, and it would be about some person being clawed back a huge amount of money because Social Security made a mistake. And the worst case was a lady that I've heard of. This lady who's clawed back for $300,000. She's disabled. She becomes disabled. She tells Social Security she has just written a book and she's getting some royalties. She just tried her hand at writing a children's book. She's getting some royalties. They say, don't worry, you can still get your disability benefit because royalties are not labor income. And then 10 years later, she gets a bill for $301,000. And the royalties have run out. She's living just on, and the reason is that she went to a couple of libraries and got a 1099 for probably the parking or the travel, the gas. Okay.
Sure.
So Social Security decides 10 years of disability benefits for whatever, some number. And then she appeals. And then the judge says, well, there's two criteria that we can waive this clawback. One is that it has to be our mistake. It was our mistake. Secondly, you have to be poor. So I looked at your cable bill and you have a lot of channels on your cable plan. I read the administrative law judge's statement, so I know for sure this was what he said. I'm not making this up. I'm going to deny you because you're clearly not that poor. Nobody that can be that poor and have that many stations on their cable plan. This lady was disabled. She couldn't really walk. This is all she had in her life was watching TV. This is really a horror stories. Terry and I are working on a book called Social Security Horror Stories, which we're going to be putting out in the fall.
And I think that's great because people can then glean a specific instance that's going to be close to them. I'm talking to Larry Kotlikoff, who is economics professor at Boston University, New York Times bestseller, podcast host of Economics Matter, a newsletter writer, and the president of the Economic Security Planning Incorporated, and has a lot of stuff underneath that. But I wanted to pivot. I want to go back to maximizing my Social Security.
Hey, Sam, before we do, let me just make the connection with the software to what I was just saying about the horror stories.
Sure.
The software can be used to figure out what you should be getting so you can make sure that you're not getting overpaid, and that which they're then going to claw back. And then, of course, you still have to be careful. I mean, there's still cases where you get clawed back because you're treating you aren't including in the software the fact that your royalty income is actually labor income. But then also, if you're getting underpaid, the software can help you with that. And also, if you have been collecting for a while, you can go back and see what you should be getting. So all these ways of the software is really good for checking to make sure you're not going to get a clawback letter. Like we've got like close to 1 million people getting clawback letters just in a year or a couple of years. In terms of the numbers, it's not in 1 year. It's about 250,000 this year. Wow. But if you add them up, there's about 1 million there who are actively dealing with clawback letters.
It's worth the $39 to do it. I wanted to pivot because all of my
Yep.
clients, I like to find out a little bit more about them. We had Wade Fowl on and Moshe Molesky, and we're asking a little bit different questions they're not used to. I'd like to know about you. Nobody wakes up in the morning and go, you know what? I'm going to work on Social Security. I mean, give me some of your background, where you came from, when you grew up, and what led you to this point to where you wake up every single morning and you literally are doing things that are helping the public. Can you give me that story quickly, as opposed to all of these other great things that you've done? I'd like to know about Larry Kotlikoff, the kid, where he grew up, where he went to school, and then how this all happened to get you here.
Okay, sure. So I grew up in Pennsauken, New Jersey. My dad and his brothers had the first and last department store in Camden. It's a family store. He got Parkinson's. My mom was working. We all got into college because she was working at Penn. We were able to get tuition paid for us, but I had to work basically 40 hours, 60 hours a week during college to get, because the store was collapsing and they didn't have it. My parents couldn't support us. And then I got into Harvard. I was thinking about becoming a doctor, and then I came face to face with a frog that I was dissecting, and we had to kill the frog and bring it back to life, massage its heart, kill it again. And it was like kill, revive for hours and write down each case. At that point, I walked out of the room and said, I'm going to be an economics major. And the economics was interesting because it's rigorous. You got this mathematical rigor, you got this theory, and then you also have the ability to help society and individuals. And I got interested when I was in grad school I worked not just on kind of big macroeconomic issues, but also in personal finance. Are people saving enough? Are they buying enough life insurance? And that got me into, after I got out of grad school, to start doing programming to figure out, gee, we have this data set and we have information about how much life insurance people are holding. Can we figure out what they should be holding? That required, in effect, building a financial plan for these people. And that required figuring out what they're going to spend every year and their taxes and their cash flow constraints. So that was the origins of building the software for the public, Maxifi planner.com. So I guess I've always been interested in, I got into economics because I thought I could help people, or I could help society, not just myself. And my uncle was an academic and a sociologist. I think that influenced me. I had great teachers. I got into Harvard through some clerical error. And I was literally thought this was a mistake. Somebody had made a mistake that they admitted me. And because I wasn't like the top SAT or GRE scorer, I had, very high grades in college. I had a professor who actually just made a connect. Had just come from Harvard. I think he called up the guy in charge of admissions at Harvard, the professor, and said, take these 3 kids. And because no school like Harvard would take 3 people from Penn. They took 1 person from Chile, 1 person from India, 1 person from Iran. 3 people from Penn just doesn't make any sense. But he was a brilliant guy. He had a close connection with the admissions director. We get in. We all did fine. One person's a professor at Chicago, a full professor. So, and then I just started working on these different issues around personal finance, but also bigger questions like carbon taxation and how you fix the banking system. I ran for president, actually. I don't know if your staff picked this up, but in 2016 against Clinton and Trump, I ran as a write-in candidate. And I did this not to win because I didn't think I was going to win. It wasn't delusional, but I thought it was important for economists to spell out exactly how to fix all our problems: the Social Security system, the healthcare system, the tax system, the education system, the welfare system, the whole thing. And we economists have solutions, and they're not complicated, they're simple. So I put together this platform. And there's a book on my website at kotlikoff.net called you're hired. It's not you're fired, but it's called you're hired,
Mm-hmm.
which lists all the, which goes through, how to fix everything. And if you go to larrykotlikoff.substack.com, there's a condensed version in like 2 pages. I say how to fix the entire country in one fell swoop. Include, it's doable. And economists agree who are not political. We're not political
Sure.
animals.
Sure.
If you're connected to a political party and you're an economist, you basically lost your right to do economics, your license, in my view.
I
Because
agree with that. I mean, I agree with that. That is fascinating. So this is a passion. You get up in the morning and it really is driving you. How long is it? Software doesn't happen overnight. Software is like a 10-year overnight sensation. How long is it? I mean, how long has it taken you? And I know you're always tweaking and improving, but from start to implementation and to, handing it over to the public, how long did that take?
that, for us to get a prototype going that was good enough to sell, was about 5 years, starting in 1993.
Got
So
it.
the company's been around for 30 years. And this is for anybody who's a do-it-yourselfer. But the software is as easy as TurboTax to run. It's a kind of wizard to take you, both programs, takes you through, says, here's what you want to do, here's what we think. Robo optimizes your decisions over retirement accounts and Social Security. And then you can manually do like Roth conversions and or decide whether or not to marry Joe or Sally,
Mm-hmm.
or whether to downsize your home or how long to retire.
Wow.
All these questions conventional software can't address because it's got a bait and switch product sales of methodology. Fundamentally, it's not connected. It's not really trying to help you, the household, you, the consumer, you the customer. It's really trying to help the person you came to see. It's built that way, and not that all the financial planners are out to rip off people. It's just that that's the software that they're kind of stuck using and they were trained using. The CFA, the CFP, all these curriculums, the RIA curriculums, none of them spend 5 minutes telling anybody about the economics approach to financial planning, which is completely different and gives you completely different recommendations, which are common sense. Like, I'm not going to ask you, Stan, how much you'd like to target to spend in retirement, because guess what? You can only spend what you've got.
Right.
I'm going to ask you what you've got, not your aspirations to spend $1 billion a day.
Right.
I just want to know what you've got. And then I'm going to use the software to figure out, taking account of all your taxes and all your off the top expenses on housing and college tuition, what your discretionary spending can be, and allocate that through time in a way that your living standard per household member is fixed and that you don't violate any cash flow constraints. That's what the software does. It's based on sophisticated algorithms that we learned in economics, but I put some things together. I got a patent for the methodology.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, I'm assuming you did. Okay.
Iterative dynamic programming is, for those who are real geeks out there, is what we're doing here. So it's just to be a little bit geeky here. The idea of iterating to a solution when you have lots of equations, what are called simultaneous equations. X is a very complicated function of Y. Y is a very complicated function of X. Well, the way these guys, Gauss and Seidel, mathematicians like 1780 in Basel, Germans in Switzerland, they said, well, let's just plug in a guess for X, and we'll come back, use that equation, and get a guess for Y, and plug in a guess for Y, a different guess for Y, and get a new guess for X, and then take these new guesses and plug them back into those equations and go back and forth, do some dampening, and get to a solution. And for a lot of problems, these things will converge as you go back and forth to the right answer. You get a solution to the two equations, an X and a Y, that satisfy both. So Newton had a method that he came up with, which requires, when you have millions of lots of equations, is just beyond any computer. But these guys, Gauss and Seidel, said, let's do something simple. So we have a very kind of state-of-the-art, what's called dynamic programming algorithm, 3 programs that are using this old technique to iterate back and forth. So you got kind of modern mathematics, modern algorithms, and an old algorithm, and they work together. So that's, to me, kind of a beautiful solution, to use the old and the new to get to an answer. And it always works. The system, we've not had any cases where our program never works for somebody.
That's fantastic. Let's kind of pivot, because we're not pivoting too hard, because it's all correlated to what you're doing. Maxifi.com. I'll have all this on my site, maxifi.com, maxifiplanner.com, which is a pretty interesting personal, planning retirement software. I've been with Dean Witter, Morgan Stanley, Payne Weber, UBS. I've done that for a long, long time, and now I'm the mythical Stan the Annuity Man, but I do have a lot of pedigree on that side of the table, and I have seen it all. What's interesting about what you've done here is the calculation on not only your highest sustainable living standard starting now, but how to maintain that and actually raise it. Can you dumb it down for us out here, Larry, and kind of explain how that works?
Okay, so economics deals with uncertainty in two ways. One is we do something called a certainty equivalent analysis, where we make very conservative assumptions to adjust for risk. Yes, I think on average I'm going to earn 150,000 a year, but I'm going to bias my input here to make it 100,000 just to adjust for risk. Just like we adjust a stock for risk, we risk discount stock dividends, risk adjust them to get the price. So this is all throughout finance, that certainty equivalent method. So when you run our program, it can run in two ways. One is this way, where you put in conservative assumptions, also about rates of return that you're going to earn. The program will give you a baseline living standard. Then you can hit a tool that will optimize it. It'll figure out the optimal Social Security and retirement account withdrawal decisions to lower your lifetime taxes, to raise your living standard. Because if your benefits go up and your taxes go down, that level of your living standard can go up. Mm-hmm. So that's free money. That's money magic. That's where the title of the book came from, that this tool can make money magic. And then then you can also manually optimize over like Roth conversions, or downsizing my home, or moving to Texas where there's no state income tax, or just working longer, or marrying Joe who makes 3 times what my current husband makes. You study, does it pay to divorce? And
the divorce algorithm, love it.
Yes, and then we have the other reports in our program deal the other way with uncertainty that economics deals with, which is just to see what happens as people go along and adjust in light of what's happened. So this is where we do Monte Carlo simulations.
Sure.
And we show you trajectories of your living standard. We take you, Stan, you look like you're about 45.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Well,
how about 59?
59. Okay. So we take you, let's say 59. We say, okay, we've got your resources. Let's figure out, you tell us an interest rate as, basically your spending behavior. You want to spend as if you're always going to earn, let's say 2% real or 1% real, something conservative. We figure out using our deterministic calculations exactly what you're going to spend, assuming you want to have a smooth living standard into the future. And then we mark down your living standard this year at 59. Then we go and say, well, let's take, now we move you to age 60. We know what your assets are. We take draws of your returns. You tell us what your portfolio is going to be. And now you're at 60 and we do the same thing. We figure out your living standard. So now we start generating a trajectory of your living standard. And we do 500 of these trajectories. And that's Monte Carlo simulations, where you're seeing your living standard in front of you. If you invest this aggressively and spend this aggressively, you get to see the upside and the downside outcomes. And then you can see whether that's too much downside risk or whether you're fascinated by the upside potential. And of course, if you have, all this takes into account like things like Social Security or other sources of resources that are safe, that may be safe, annuities, it might be a single life annuity that you might, or immediate annuity that you have, that, and of course, inflation's incorporated, so you can run it with high or low inflation. And you can get a feeling for whether this works for me where it's not a simulation of will I go broke if I keep spending some desired fixed amount from retirement through the end of my life. That's what the traditional software out there is doing. It's running the probability of your eating cat food and trying to minimum, say, well, I
Right.
can make that lower. And yeah, by putting you in riskier things, you can make it lower, but also it raises the probability of you're eating the cat food for a longer period of time. The probability that you actually end up eating cat food goes down, but the probability that you'll have to eat cat food, that you go broke earlier in life, goes up. If you invest, in other words, risk is not free. Now, the other way, I'll just say one other thing here, which I think is important, which is that we have this other way of running Monte Carlo simulations, which do the following, which I think is really important for the middle class and for your viewers to understand. It's called upside investing. And so it's not, it says, if you're concerned about having your living standard decline, but you still want to be in the market, here's a tool to do that, a way to think about that, which is you put a certain amount of money in the stock market, you decide how much to put in there. You tell the program how much is there right now, how much you're going to add to it, when you're going to start withdrawing, when you're going to stop withdrawing. And then the program does this deterministic planning, assuming that all your other assets are put into TIPS, inflation index bonds. So it's basically stocks and TIPS. But the key thing is that it has you spend nothing out of the stocks. It says, we're going to treat those stocks as if they're lost, 100%. And this is going to establish a floor to your living standard. And then we run Monte Carlo simulations. And as you start withdrawing, let's say you're going to start withdrawing at 60 and gradually till 75, take out a 15th, a 14th, a 13th of what's in the market, in the stock market, in your pot there. As whenever you take a withdrawal, the program has you put it into TIPS. So now you can raise your floor. So you have this living standard floor and upside to the living standard. Is pure upside risk. So this is something nobody else has kind of developed in Wall Street, which is just upside investing, having upside risk to your living standard, no downside risk. And that's, I think, what most people don't want to go to sleep at night at 73, worried about the stock market crashing and their life crashing.
No, I agree with that. I haven't been on that side of the table. This is very refreshing, just to hear the thinking behind it. And it's not a group that's been hired to push product or push an agenda or push a strategy or push something the firm wants to do. I've seen those products. What's the difference between the Maxify, MaxifiPlanner.com, Maxify.com, and the ESPlanner.com, or is that one and the same? Because I was doing my research on that.
So ES Planner was the download version we had for years.
Okay.
Before the web really took off. We're such an old company, we had download software. So that's no longer in existence.
Got it.
Because we moved it into the online program. And we're not a company that works that takes advertising. We don't have any.
Good.
We're not assigning people to go find an agent. We don't have any of those deals. We don't take any advertising on our website.
Good.
This is, the academic instinct, which is you stay clear of Wall Street. It's not just the instinct; it's the requirement.
No, I agree. That's the reason I only do contractual guarantees. My motto is you own an annuity for what it will do, not what it might do. I think what you're doing dovetails nicely into our strategies, because what you're doing is very high level on the other side of the table with investments, et cetera. I think it's very unique. My question is, how has the advisor nation accepted it, or do they see it as, I'm sure some love it, but do most see it as a threat, or do most even see it?
It's hard for us to get seen by the advisors because when we try and run ads, we get front run by big companies like Fidelity or T. Rowe Price, or even if you put it into your browser, the name "Maximize My Social Security," somebody's ad will show up in front of our tool. If you put
Same thing happens with Stan the Annuity Man. My click makes a lot of money for Google. I mean, just someone types in Stan the Annuity Man, I think they're paying like $20-something a click. But the point is, I understand where you're headed, is they type in this, and that's the reason we're going to have a link on our site where you can go direct. People are front running you a little bit. That's for sure.
There's that. There's the fact that if you work for a big company like Fidelity, you're forced to use e-money, for example.
Sure.
You cannot use anybody else's software. So there's that. And then there's a lot of people that have been, even if they're small firms who are not connected with a big guy or gal company,
Sure.
They have all their data in eMoney or MoneyGuide Pro. They're used to it. Converting to us, it's not that big a deal, but they're hesitant because I don't understand this, because financial planners can do so much more for their clients. I can take a typical person and with Social Security optimization, with retirement account tax minimization, with these other decisions, I can rescue people's retirement. We have so many people coming into retirement with so little money. They have to make the best out of their resources. And if I'm a financial planner, I've got two options. I can actually do real financial planning with this tool, which is the only one you can use to do it, and make something magical happen out of very little. Or I can, try and beat the market.
And I was on your site earlier, the maxifiplanner.com site with maxify.com.
Yeah.
It's $109 to get in, and then after that, it's $89 a year for you to run it yourself. And for people that listen to my podcast and that are my clients in all 50 states, high IQ, do-it-yourselfers, this is right in your wheelhouse, listeners, okay, and viewers. And we're on all major podcast platforms. We're also seen on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. I would advise you to go take a look at this because, it has comprehensive planning. You can run unlimited reports. It works on anything you have, all devices, browsers, it doesn't matter. They figured it out. And I think it's a breath of fresh air and something that you need to look at and implement instead of having whatever software the firm that you're with or, online firm or walk-in marble floor firm uses. Why not use this? Why not do a comparison quickly? I think you're going to be very, very shocked on the simplicity of this. And I think that's the biggest kudos I have to you and your team is, Steve Jobs always said, simple is complex. Man, you have taken the complex and really have made it simple and dumbed it down for, the person out here that's been working hard all their lives, don't really have time to be an economics professor and learn all this, but you're handing it to them on a plate for not that much money.
And you can, if you're sitting here running your basic plan, it's going to take a half a second. We have this thing, it's running on Amazon web servers, high security in terms of privacy. And it's amazing it runs in a half a second. When I first started developing this, I thought it would take 3 years to run one case. And the combination of great engineering, this patented methodology, and the hardware, it's amazing how quickly it works. But then you can run side-by-side comparisons. Okay, what if I sell the house, move to Tennessee where there's no state income tax, buy a place that's actually bigger for less money because I'm moving from Connecticut. And, but I take a few, now I'm going to have to fly my kids here 3 times a year. Will I be ahead and my friends to spend time with me in my mansion in Tennessee? And, how much further ahead will I be? Well, you see immediately, here's my lifetime spending doing this, the discretionary spending. Here's my lifetime spending doing that, staying where I am. You see the gain immediately in dollars. The housing, of course, is part of it. You've improved your housing, but you've also dramatically improved potentially your lifetime spending. Why do this may sound like I'm speaking out of kind of a hypothetical where I haven't seen this happen for sure, but I'm talking to you from a 303-year-old house that we bought during COVID, my wife and I, in Providence, for we bought it for what was it? I think it was $650,000. It's 40% bigger than the place we left in Boston, which we sold for 1.3 million. To go to BU, 35-minute commute, plus a little bit longer, but anyway, so we looked, we used our software to figure out whether this actually made sense. And it's, we were living in a small 960 square foot condo. The prices went crazy. We just got out in time before they crashed.
Sure.
And then we bought this thing where the prices in Rhode Island, in Providence, are a third of what they are per square foot in Boston. That's the kind of thing you can compare. We just used the software the other day to buy a townhouse to take some money out of our retirement account, my IRA, pay taxes on it, make a down payment to buy a townhouse around the corner to try and be diversified outside the stock market. And so we did here's a profile where we don't do it. Here's a profile where we do it. Doesn't make sense given all the complications here. Because if you withdraw money,
right.
I'm not on Medicare because I'm still working, but if I were on, it would affect my IRMA tax, my Medicare Part B taxes. It would affect it's going to affect this year's taxes, but also lower my future taxes because I'm going to be withdrawing less, right? So all the entire time path of federal and state, Rhode Island and Massachusetts taxes, because I have to pay taxes in both places, and federal taxes, it's all being calculated in a half a second, and you have a side-by-side comparison. Here's one column, and here's another. We found it was going to increase our lifetime spending by $167,000. We bought the place. It's under a conservative assumption about appreciation.
Sure.
We financed it at 6.25. All this gets included, and including the capital gains tax on selling it after 10 years, which is what we assumed. You can't do this with other stuff.
So instead of the quote unquote advisor giving their opinion, I mean, you're running numbers into this. I got a question for you. We got a few more minutes because I know you got to run to another event because you are a busy guy, and I appreciate you being on and want you to be back on because I want to dig back in a little bit more on the Social Security side because I guarantee you after this goes live, we'll get the thousands of emails going, why didn't you ask this? Ask him this. But my question for someone like you, and I'm a creative as well in a lot of other areas, what's the new thing for you right now? Or is there a new thing, or is it just perfecting all of the things that you've already done? What are you waking up now? What's getting your attention and your energy right now?
Well, first of all, keeping the company alive. We're doing a lot of research with the Fed, but the Fed actually is on budget crunch right now. So we have to we're going to try and raise capital to get, to do more marketing and advertising. So all this kind of business type stuff. But if you ask me, where's the future of financial planning? It starts with our software, but it says, let's automate more decisions like Roth conversions, for example, which are, but then, so there's that. And then there's more uncertainties to incorporate, like your earnings uncertainty, Stan. So I could ask you about your entire history of earnings, which you could, tell me about, not just the stuff that is covered from the Social Security record, but the uncovered earnings years. And then I would have a time series of your earnings. So I would be able to kind of discern what kind of the average trend of your earnings is, but also the shocks, the deviations, how much kind of risk you're facing.
Sure.
And I could incorporate that as part of the Monte Carlo to say, okay, you're not just facing rate of return risk, real return risk, but also earnings risk, which is a big thing. And then there might be some other risks that now, we have always a tension here between making things, incorporating more things and then making it too complex for people to follow,
right?
Versus not. So these things will always be, optional. Do you want to, the basic thing won't have it, but then you'll be able to check a box. I mean, in the settings to turn it on. So it'll be the default will be probably to have it off, but then if you want to explore this, so I'd like to get where I'm coming from is 100 years of economic research on personal finance. It's not like I, the economist, developed this methodology for our software just on my own.
Right.
Quite the contrary. Economics says exactly what to do. It's like a blueprint. How to do it is what I figured out. How to do it, but economists have been working on personal finance since around 1920. Irving Fisher developed the life cycle model of saving. Key economists worked on the economics of annuities and life insurance, Maxifi in particular, an Israeli economist. Bob Merton and other people got the Nobel Prize in Finance for work on portfolio choice. So we have this methodology called expected utility maximization that says, look, you have all these trajectories under this plan of Monte Carlo outcomes, and then we have all these under this plan. How do we compare them? And we have a way to do it, a mathematical way. It's called expected utility. You look at your average happiness, and the difference between money and happiness has to do with the fact that you have diminishing marginal happiness from consuming more and more steaks at a given setting. It's diminishing returns to extra consumption, but so you're much more concerned about the downside than the upside. That's risk aversion. So when you incorporate that, you get, and that's actually in our software right now.
Wow.
We're actually, you can take your base portfolio plan investment strategy, compare with let's say a safer one versus a riskier one, and see which one does better on an expected lifetime utility basis, telling the program how risk averse you are. And the risk aversion connects to this satiation. So we have actually got everything that the fundamentals of economic financial planning, all of it, right, including life insurance. We figure out to the dollar how much life insurance somebody needs to maintain the living standard of their survivors if they make it to their maximum age of life. So I've actually taken economics theory extremely seriously and said, I'm going to do it exactly the way the profession says it has to be done, so that somebody like, and I refer to Bob Merton, he's the Isaac Newton of finance. He's done such fundamental work on option pricing. I got the Nobel Prize for that with work with Merton and Fisher Black. And Bob loves the software. And my goal was to be able to take it to Bob Merton, who Paul Samuelson said was the Isaac Newton of finance. He quoted it. That's a quote from him before he passed away. And because he's done so much fundamental work, if he likes this, then I know I've done something for all these years. He loves it.
That's funny. Being the marketer that I am, I'm listening to this, and my gift is to simplify everything and to make sure that the public understands. I think your biggest hurdle, and this, is just showing people the value. And there's actually a point where I saw the price of it, and I'm thinking that people look at that and go, you're going to hear Larry, and then you're going to go to the site, and then you're going to see this small price. You're like, what? Wait a minute. So here's my tagline. You don't have to use it if you want to. It's so much, so simple for so little. And yes, it is too good to be true. Because I always say, if it sounds too good to be true, it is every single time. Not here. So there's a bunch. So much for so little amount of money. So much, so simple, so for so little. I think that's the way that I would synopsize the work that Larry and his team have done, because they've taken enormous amount of data and simplified it, and then they're not charging a lot for the consumer to use it for themselves. It's insanely cool and good, and I'm proud that I'm going to be able to promote it through my channels to my people as well. We got a couple more minutes, Larry. I'm certainly going to have you back on if you'd be so gracious to be back on in the future.
Anytime, Stan. I love talking to you.
But what I do with my guests, I don't tell them this beforehand, is we do a mic drop moment. So envision yourself as Larry Kotlikoff, mainstream rapper. You're in front of all these people. You're going to say one really cool thing to synopsize this up. I'm going to count you down from 5. So mic drop moment, a true superstar, Larry Kotlikoff. If you got to listen to this one twice because it was a lot. And once again, I'm going to have all of these links on my site where you can go and just easily click and get to where you want to get to. So here we go, Larry, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
You'd like a
Mic drop moment. Give me a walk away statement. That's unbelievable. No pressure.
Economics, well, incorporated in our software, Maxify.com, can make you free money safely, because it's out there to be had, and because we can't do these kinds of calculations in our head, we need sophisticated software, and the program can put it all together and make money magic. That's the title of my book. That's what the software is doing. It's making money magic.
That person is Larry Kotlikoff. He is an absolute superstar, and we're glad that he's in the financial services business from the standpoint of helping people, not trying to sell stuff. But I want to thank everybody on all major podcast platforms for joining me and watching us on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. I will see you next time.